Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, and today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you. Australia is a continent known for its natural beauty, sandy beaches, deserts, and in some places, bushland. At the same time, Australia is one of the most highly urbanized countries with megacities such as Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, and Perth. Snapper Point is an Australian conservation area located near Fraser Park Beach, near Catherine Hill Bay, New South Wales. The area around Cape Snapper Point attracts intrepid tourists who climb it in search of unforgettable shots, as it is made up entirely of steep, uneven volcanic rocks. On April 24, 2016, at 10:30 a.m., a group of hikers walking at the foot of the promontory noticed something large floating on the surface of the water. They reported the find to law enforcement. The police arrived on the scene and removed an unknown package. Upon examining the find on shore, they discovered the body of an unknown woman with multiple injuries, indicating that the victim had been brutally assaulted. She was not identified, but news accounts described her as an Asian female between 20 and 35 years old of average height. 5 years earlier, a major airport in northern Sichuan province in the People's Republic of China saw off 20-year-old Meng Mei Leng in a torrential downpour. The girl tearfully said goodbye to her beloved mother. After the death of her father in 2008, her mom became the closest person to her. She flew from her native China to faraway Australia, where she had dreamed of studying since her childhood. 11 hours later, the plane landed in Sydney. It was the first time Meng Mei had made such a long journey alone, but she was in a hurry to achieve her dream, so she easily overcame any difficulties. She was met at the airport by her own aunt and her son, who was only 2 years younger than Meng Mei. The oldest and most populous state in Australia is New South Wales. 1 in 3 Australians live in its territory. It was here that Meng Mei's early years were spent after moving here. Since coming to Australia, Meng Mei has lived happily with her 48-year-old aunt, her young husband, Derek Barrett, and with her cousin in their camping house. The girl had a private room where she spent almost all of her free time. Meng Mei loved to read and draw, so she would spend hours in her room pursuing her favorite hobbies. For the convenience of living in another country, Meng Mei changed her name to Michelle. Michelle Lang enrolled at the University of Technology in Sydney, where she successfully studied economics and hospitality management. Michelle was very intelligent and motivated. She was not afraid of anything new and easily made new acquaintances. Like many girls of her age, she often posted photos in social networks, on which she drank cocktails with friends, as well as shots with extreme outings to dangerous places. By nature, Michelle was an adventurous person who could easily travel to Hobart for a vacation and regularly took day trips around New South Wales. In recent weeks, she posted videos from West Head Lookout near Sydney Harbour, photos from Resolute Beach, north of the city, from Ku-ring-gai Chase National Park, and from Very Beach on the south coast. On June 13, 2013, she visited Snapper Point, where she fearlessly photographed herself on the edge of a cliff and posted this prophetic photo to her Instagram account. Michelle excelled in her studies, made new friends, and found a part-time job. Wishing to arrange her personal life, Michelle regularly communicated with guys on dating sites and went on trial dates. The girl had an active and busy life, where she attended classes during the day and then hurried to work. On her weekends, she was sure to meet friends and visit unusual places. On April 21, 2016, Michelle met up with a friend at the mall. They had lunch together, did some shopping, then Michelle boarded a train at the train station. She got off at Campsie Station around 4:30 in the afternoon and was never seen again. 2 days later, Derek went to the train station to meet his wife, who had returned from a business trip. Aunt Michelle asked Derek about his niece, and he said he had not seen her in 2 days. Derek Barrett had been unemployed for a long time, so he often stayed up late at the computer and woke up only in the afternoon, so it was obvious that he might not have seen Michelle. But the situation was such that nobody had seen Michelle since April 22nd, and her phone was switched off. Having called all Michelle's acquaintances and friends, the aunt became even more worried. She inspected the girl's room, but it was in complete order as always. After looking through the girl's laptop, the family concluded that Michelle had not returned from her date, and perhaps something had happened to her. Michelle's absence was quite unusual, as she was in daily contact with friends and family members living in China and Australia. The next day, Michelle's aunt and her husband Derek went to the police station and filed a missing persons report. They also reported Michelle Leng's disappearance to the Chinese embassy. On April 24, 2016, the body of an unidentified woman wrapped in a plastic bag was found by a group of tourists at Snapper Point. As Michelle's relatives in China and Australia searched for her, local news channels carried a report of the woman's body being found. A compiled sketch of the victim aired, left no doubt. Michelle had been found. It took the police 3 days to identify her after they made a sketch of her. From that point on, Michelle Leng was officially listed as a missing person. An investigation was launched. After interviewing close relatives living with Michelle, the first theory was that Michelle had been attacked by an unknown guy who Michelle had planned to meet that day. On CCTV cameras restored the movements of the girl on the day of disappearance. But on surveillance cameras and on a short train journey, Michelle was alone. According to her friends, she had no plans to meet anyone that day and was in a hurry to get home. Reviewing social networks and correspondence of the girl did not confirm the presence of a young man with whom she could meet. The version about a secret stranger who could have committed the crime was not confirmed. The results of forensic examination were expected. The autopsy confirmed that Michelle's body had multiple injuries. She had most likely tried to fight off her attacker and suffered multiple stab wounds. Police Chief Inspector Gary Jubelin said the interpretation of the situation is that Michelle was brutally assaulted before her death, but she was spotted on her way home and did not go out anywhere else. So who could have attacked her with such atrocity? The inspector also noted that most likely the perpetrator had deliberately chosen a very lonely area of such a beautiful place. After all, the body was found in an area frequented by tourists and fishermen, but the place was somewhat isolated. Forensics found that Michelle Leng's body had been in the water for no more than 48 hours, and more likely much less, meaning that the body had been dumped quite recently. The chief inspector of police said that although the location where the body was found was far from the entrance to the national park, there was a parking lot near the tourist attraction, and so it was possible that the body had been taken there by car. Homicide detectives studied CCTV and traffic cameras to determine Michelle Leng's last movements. They continued to contact her family members, friends, and co-workers for additional information. Also, in addition to the search efforts, interviews continued with relatives and acquaintances in the hope of reconstructing a picture of the event and establishing the full picture of relationships in the family where Michelle lived. Police Inspector Gary Jubelin said with certainty that from all the information that has been collected about Michelle, she was very responsible, always stayed in touch with her family, informing them where she was going, so there were serious fears that there was trouble when she disappeared. However, for 2 days, none of the family noticed the girl was missing or simply didn't want to notice. Police called Derek Barrett in for questioning as the last person to see Michelle alive. Investigators were skeptical of his accounts of nightlife and long daytime naps, so he was re-interviewed. The investigators began asking questions about his relationship with Michelle and asked him to remember the last time he had seen her. Unable to withstand the pressure of the interrogation, Derek refused to answer the questions and demanded a lawyer. Such strange and uncertain behavior led to a number of doubts, and Derek was arrested as a suspect. However, the arrest had grounds. On the eve of the interrogation, investigators checked his cell phone signal and found that he was in the same area where Michelle's body was found on April 24th. When police obtained surveillance footage from a parking lot that captured a car matching the description of Derek Barrett's vehicle in the early morning hours of April 24th, there was no doubt that he was there. Derek denied and claimed to the last that it was just a coincidence and the car was not his, but the footage was clear enough to prove his presence in the parking lot. Police have charged a man in the death of 25-year-old Michelle Leng, whose naked body with multiple stab wounds was found in a blowhole on the central NSW coast. A 27-year-old man has been arrested and charged with murder. The news of the arrest and charge against Derek has left Michelle's entire family in shock. Police spoke to Michelle's mother, who was devastated by the news of her daughter's death. She rushed to Sydney to see the very scene of her only daughter's dream and death. The woman was still unable to comprehend her death. Derek Barrett, 27, married to Michelle Leng's aunt, was charged with the 25-year-old student's murder after police released CCTV footage capturing her last shopping trip in Sydney's central business district on April 21st and her drive home. The footage shows her shopping at a Pitt Street mall before boarding a train at St. James Station for a ride to Campsie in Sydney's southwest. Police believe Michelle returned to her family home in Campsie in the afternoon, where she lived with her uncle, aunt, and cousin. She is presumed to have been murdered in her home. Recall that the autopsy revealed that Michelle tried to fight off her attacker and was stabbed several times in defense, stabbing her more than 30 times in total. CCTV footage is believed to have captured a vehicle entering Lake Moanmorik National Park at around 7 a.m. on April 24th. Police claim Michelle Leng's body was inside the vehicle. Despite Derek Barrett being detained and charged, the investigation continued. Gradually, other details of Michelle Leng's final minutes of life surfaced. Based on these, further charges were laid, including 5 counts of indecent assault, 2 counts of installing a filming device, and murder. The investigation revealed that the suspect had an unhealthy sexual interest in his wife's young niece. When Derek Barrett's cell phone was seized and handed over to specialists to analyze and recover previously deleted data, the files found on the phone left no doubt that he was not only involved in Michelle's death, but had an unhealthy interest in her. It transpired that Derek had set up a hidden camera in the shared bathroom hidden behind toiletries and regularly reviewed the footage. The phone also contained images taken just before Michelle's death. Following these images, it was apparent that Michelle had returned home on April 21st around 5 p.m., and around midnight, she sent her last text message from her phone and had not been heard from since. Deep into the night, Derek Barrett began to put his devious plan into action. He entered Michelle's room again when she was asleep to perform the now customary shoot and satisfaction, but the girl woke up and Derek attacked her. He tied her up and put duct tape over her mouth to keep her quiet. The pervert kept her tied to the bed for 2 days and periodically abused her. In photos on his phone, investigators saw Michelle bound and naked, lying on the bed with a look of horror on her face. However, in these photos, Michelle did not yet have the injuries from which she died. Derek's last picture was taken around 8 a.m. on April 23rd, and at that time Michelle was alive. During the day of April 23rd, Derek's stepson Derek came home twice and did not hear Michelle's quiet moans. Derek was taking a shower at the time. Surveillance cameras determined that Derek left the apartment 4 times to take out the trash. Presumably by this time Michelle was already dead, and Derek, having showered and washed off traces of blood, thoroughly cleaned the house, hiding traces of the crime and Michelle's disappearance. On April 24th at 7 a.m., Derek drove to Snapper Point. On his way, he stopped at a gas station where he bought drinks and filled his car with gasoline. That's where he was caught on CCTV cameras. Upon arriving at Snapper Point, he disposed of Michelle's body and took some pictures around 9 a.m. Afterwards, Derek visited his parents, who noticed nothing unusual in his behavior, and then returned home to await his wife's return. With absolute equanimity, he reported several times that he had not seen Michelle, that the girl had not returned home, and cynically accompanied his wife to the police station to file a missing persons report. On June 29, 2016, the first court hearing was held. Barrett's lawyer, Bill Whitby, told Burwood Local Court that Barrett was pleading not guilty, and he was as shocked and upset by Michelle's death as the rest of the family. Michelle Leng's friends and family were in the packed courtroom, but Derek Barrett did not need to be present. He appeared later via video link. The fact is that the day before, the defendant reported that he didn't remember much in the hours before he killed Michelle Leng because he had taken illegal drugs the day before. He also told the court that he had only vague memories of the 2-hour trip to Snapper Point, where he threw Michelle Leng's body off the cliff. On this basis, before attending the court hearing, Derek Barrett was examined by a psychologist. However, forensic psychologist Dr. Richard First disputed the defendant's claims of memory loss. He testified and found Derek Barrett mentally fit to be punished to the full extent of his sentence. Dr. First testified that the drugs the suspect was taking did not cause memory loss. The doctor claimed that all of his actions were clear and purposeful, from the murder to the disposal of the body. Respected forensic psychiatrist Dr. Richard First also stated that Derek Barrett's IQ, concentration, and memory were within normal limits. He also did not believe Barrett's claims of memory loss and said the number of stab wounds indicated sadistic tendencies rather than memory lapses and acting on emotions. The psychologist also rejected Derek Barrett's claim that he did not feel sexually attracted to the victim. He bound, gagged, and stabbed the girl 30 times, but Derek Barrett claimed he had no memory of this. Dr. Richard First also told the court that the accused faked amnesia to mitigate his responsibility for the crime after he claimed he could not remember the period when he apprehended and killed Michelle Leng. Speaking at the trial, Derek Barrett tried to explain his crime by claiming that he was addicted to illegal drugs. However, this fact was also challenged by the doctor. Richard First pointed out that Derek's claim was self-defeating because it was obvious that the suspect had gained weight during that time period. Judge Wilson said that in his 30 years as a criminal defense attorney, he had never seen an obese, substance-dependent person. But unfortunately, there was nothing sincere about Derek Barrett's behavior in the courtroom in Sydney. Derek Barrett's behavior in court gave the impression of a psychopath. His crime was not the result of a drunken night out, some poor life choices, or childhood abuse. In August, at a retrial hearing, Derek Barrett pleaded guilty to murdering and kidnapping Michelle Leng, as well as twice sneaking into her room while she slept and making videos. He also admitted taking 19 explicit photos of Michelle Leng shortly before her death. Barrett said he could not remember the 48-hour period during which he killed the girl, including cleaning up the crime scene and dumping her body, because he was under the influence of illegal substances. He said his only memories were of an argument, blood in the bathroom, and the terrified face of his niece screaming at him. However, Judge Wilson said she did not believe Derek Barrett was telling the truth about his memory loss, nor did she believe he was truly sorry for what he had done. The Leng family consoled each other while Derek Barrett wiped away tears, telling them, "I deserve to live. This should never have happened." Passing sentence, Judge Helen Wilson went even further. She said it was a depraved and sadistic act committed by a person in a position of trust with Mrs. Leng. As the judge detailed Derek Barrett's fantasies and actions in front of a packed courtroom, he stared at the floor. He was no longer enjoying the attention, and it was abundantly clear that he had failed to fool anyone. Obviously, the events that had occurred must be seared into his brain, but the killer claimed they were nothing more than flashes in his memory because he had taken drugs a day or two before. He never flinched once in the court sessions, repeating his victim's name over and over again. Speaking to the court, Chief Inspector Gary Jubilin of the NSW Police Homicide Unit said the crime was horrific and senseless. "From an investigative point of view, it's nice that we got justice, but there's no joy in a case like this," he said. Judge Helen Wilson sentenced 28-year-old Derek Barrett to 34 years and 6 months in prison for his crime, with a maximum term of 46 years. He will be eligible for parole in 2050. Barrett showed no emotion when he was sentenced. Michelle's mother, Mrs. Jiang, thanked the Australian and Chinese communities for their support at a time when she is suffering greatly. She also thanked the NSW police including Detective Inspector Gary Jubelin of the Homicide Squad, for investigating her daughter's death. A fund has been set up to pay for Miss Leng's funeral and to support her mother when she returns to China. But Michelle Leng's sad story did not end there. 4 years after the crime, inexplicable events occurred in one family. A woman often visited her elderly mother, and on one of these visits she found her sitting in a chair in the kitchen with an unknown USB device in her hands. When the daughter plugged the USB drive into her computer, she saw that it contained graphic videos and photos of obscene content and contacted the police. The thumb drive contained 9 video files that lasted more than an hour and 13 files with photos of Michelle Leng being abused shortly before she was murdered on April 23, 2016. The woman had no discernible connection to Derek Barrett, lived about 4 miles from his former home in Campsie, and it is not known where the USB drive came from or how it came into her family home. Police were able to match the photos to those that Derek Barrett deleted from his phone before his arrest in an attempt to hide his crimes from police. In 2020, Derek Barrett was charged with a number of sex offenses after videos of him abusing Michelle Leng were found on the USB drive in November 2019. But police and prosecutors admitted they were at an impasse over the discovery of the device, which led to the new charges. Prosecutor Hugh Baker told the court that the elderly woman with dementia was confined to the house and only went out into the yard. There is no explanation as to how the USB drive ended up in the woman's hands at the house in Strathfield, Baker told the court. Based on new facts and evidence, Derek Barrett has had his sentence extended without parole after images found by chance revealed the full extent of his abuse of Michelle before he murdered her. This horrifying, depraved secret, found by chance in the hands of an elderly woman in a leafy Sydney suburb, resulted in the convicted criminal receiving additional years of deserved punishment to his already lengthy sentence. Friends and acquaintances honored Michelle Leng on Chinese and Australian social media. Every story wants to be summarized, to break it down into its components in order to approach and understand whether it is possible, by changing the chain of events, to prevent bullying, fear, and crime. Obviously, unemployed Derek Barrett had nothing to do. The young man was in the active phase of puberty and physical strength, lying at his computer all day and night, doing nothing, and demons took hold of his rotten soul. Perhaps if he had been working, there would have been no strength or desire for lust. But in this story, Derek's laziness, Aunt Michelle's pity, and her cousin's indifference played a cruel trick on her that cost her 2 days of humiliation, fear, and pain. Dear friends, cherish life because you never know which day will be your last. Thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe to my channel. There are many shocking stories ahead of you.